Hey everybody, it's Tom Sorsey here, once again for another ball motion analysis video for Storm and Rotogrip. Today we are talking about Storm's Omega Crux. The Omega Crux GI-20 Pearl cover stock. So you'll recognize the GI cover stocks going back a ways. GI-15 on the lock, the GI-16 on the Alpha Crux, GI-17 on the Sure Lock, GI-18 on some overseas balls, so just another version of that cover stock if you have any of those balls you liked. The core is the Revolutionary Catalyst core, came out on the first Crux and on every subsequent Crux as well. 2.50 is the RG 052 differential, and let's take a look at mine. So 50 by 5 by 30, I mean this is a pretty standard sort of, I want to see how this ball rolls for me type of drilling for me. 5-inch pin, mass bias just right of my thumb. I have a lot of balls drilled similarly, so it's one that I like to have just to kind of see where I'm at. I've actually had a pretty love-hate relationship with the Crux line myself. I didn't have the original Crux. I didn't have a ton of success with the Alpha Crux, even though everyone I knew thinks it's like the greatest ball ever made. And it looks real good for them. And for me, I really loved the Crux Pearl. Used it all the time, had a whole bunch of them, and it's one of my favorites. So having another Pearl Crux, I was really interested in seeing how good it would look for me compared to those things in the past. So let's take a look here. So one thing that I noticed right away was that this was much stronger than I had expected it to be. And that could be a number of different factors playing into that. So we know that we have a relatively strong cover stock, even though this is a Pearl version of that cover stock. We have had it on balls like the Lock and the Sure Lock and the Alpha Crux. So it's certainly in the stronger end of the spectrum. And also, the other big thing is the surface. So I didn't really mess around with the surface. It comes at 3,000 sanded, and I never really used my Crux Pearl with a lot of surface on it for the most part. So it was much stronger than I had expected at first. And it was also a little smoother than I expected as well, because again, for a long time, I was used to using my Crux Pearl as a quicker response ball. And then as it got to get more oil soaked into it and it started to tame out a bit, then I began to kind of add some surface to it and use it more in the medium capacity. But that was never sort of my intention at first. So it was a little shocking at first to see something that was as strong as this was. So you can see here, I made a pretty big jump to the left. I want to say it was something like 10 and 7, somewhere in that range, because I wanted to see what it would look like with big open angles. And we really get one out to the right there. And you can see that that sort of medium response time-ish action didn't really want to make that sharp turn at the end of the pattern and leave the blower 7. So the ball that I wanted to compare it to was the Astrophysics, and the reason that I chose this was I just wanted to get another Pearl asymmetrical ball to take a look at. So one thing to kind of get into first, and you'll notice it right away, is that the Astrophysics, I didn't really mess around with the surface. I kind of glazed it a little bit with a pad. I wanted to get it a little bit less shiny than it usually is in my bag because I wanted to get it closer to that Omega Crux. But immediately we can see the quicker response time right away. As soon as it's seeing the dry, it's making that left turn. We're having a hard time keeping it on the right side of the head pin. And there certainly is a factor there with the surface of that cover. What I will say is that it certainly felt weaker to me as well. Even though it was entering the pins higher on the head pin, this happens a lot of times when we're comparing two balls with different response times. We have this idea that the stronger ball hooks more, and it's not necessarily the case. It's about what it does when it sees the friction, and you can tell, at least between these two particular balls at the time, that this astrophysics is seeing the friction. It's making that sharper turn. It's harder for me to keep it to the right side of the head pin. And then when I make the movement and open it up, it's closer, but it seems like it's hydroplaning a little bit. It's skidding too much, and it's not getting ready to make that turn once we get it into more oil. This one is a side to side of the two here. It's a little slow motion in there. You can see if you really look at it that astrophysics really bite when it sees that friction and the longer, smoother motion of that Omega Crux, at least with these two side by side. And one of the interesting things is that this astrophysics is actually drilled with a little bit of a slower, slightly stronger drilling as well. And we still see it show up quicker, and we still see it seem weaker despite those differences. One of the things I noticed about the Omega Crux is that as I started to get a little lane shine on it, it did seem to really start to quicken up a little bit, but still not as much as I had expected based on what I'm used to. And maybe that'll change once I get some more games on it and I kind of play around with it some more, but I was a little surprised. And so that's going to lead us into this. So when it comes to friction created, I'm setting it right now at medium high. I certainly feel like I reserve the right to bring that down to medium a little bit, but it really does feel like a very strong pearl ball, one of the strongest pearls that I've thrown in a long time. And when it comes to response time, again, I don't want to just say what I think it does. I want to say how I think it's best used. And so at this time, I'm leaning toward medium. As I get to know the ball more, as I get to try it out on different patterns with different strategies, that may change. It may seem like it's better to be used on the medium slow side with a lot of surface, or it may be better to be used in the medium quick side and we really get a little bit more shine to it. But right now it feels like a really good medium ball. And again, a lot of times when I do these videos, I have the opportunity to get to know the ball a little bit better. It's part of the reason why I don't like to put the videos out right when I get the ball. However, given the current circumstances of the country right now, and especially New York State, I haven't really gotten to put that many games in on this ball, as many as I had expected to be able to by now. So a lot of this is just early information, and it may morph and it may change, and that's important. And it's also important to remember that even a ball that I have a lot of experience with, as that ball soaks in oil, as that ball gets more used, it's going to change those response time characteristics, those friction characteristics, because that's just what happens over time. And there's a lot of change that happens to a ball's motion in the first 50 games. So we're really just kind of messing around with what we think works by the time we figure it out, and then it might be changed from then. So there's just a lot of variables to put into play. So it's important to remember that this is where we think it is now, but that could certainly change the more that I mess around with it or anybody else does too. Hopefully that's not over the top or confusing in any way. It's just to say that it takes a while to truly understand where balls fit within one another, and it's difficult to have that much confidence in where to slot them into your arsenal until you get to the point where you really feel confident that you know where it belongs and that it consistently will perform that way in order to, say, take the spot of something else. And with this, I am excited to see what happens based on my history with cruxes that are pearl. But we're still going to need some more time to see where that fits in. And hopefully I will have another ball in the near future that I can do to compare to this ball after it's got some more games on it and I've gotten a little bit more used to it, to kind of see where I'm at that point. As usual, I want to thank sponsors, friends, people that help make these videos possible. Obviously, Storm and Roto Grip, as I always say, best balls in the market. Super thrilled to have an opportunity to throw them and show them to you. Bull U, there's a ton of really cool products and tools that they're selling right now. And hopefully once the world gets back to normal a little bit, there will be some camps in the future too. Brad Angelo Lane's letting me go in and film there and drill these bad boys up. Tim Friends, friendsphotography.com, 2Fs, helping me do the video and the photos for these. And Jim DeWitt, soundcloud.com/Jim DeWitt, for providing the music for me. As usual, I'll do my best to make sure I can answer any questions or comments in the YouTube chat. You can also find me on Facebook, and I will be able to try to do my best to get back to you there as well. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Be on the lookout. There's a couple of more coming really soon. we're going to kind of rifle through a lot of these in the coming days and weeks and get caught up a little bit. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.